Hello, lords and ladies. Today we're going to look at some challenges during the late Middle Ages, religion and conflict, and how those things caused some problems. So to do that, we're going to first lay out our objectives. Today we're looking to discuss the economic, political, and social effects of religious crises in the late Middle Ages. And we want to look at the relationship between two of the larger, more powerful nations at this point, France and England, and how they're getting along with each other during the late Middle Ages. So those are the objectives that you're going to be looking at and that we're going to seek to make sure you can see. Okay, so if you think you'll need more time, you should start thinking about pausing it because we're going to move on in a moment. And I'm going to start first by looking at the religious issues that are going to plague Europe in the the late Middle Ages. So first, we want to look at religious crisis and what's going on. Okay, so these crises are in different areas. We already know that the church was very, very powerful during the Middle Ages and that it's what tied the Europeans together and fought community. So any kind of dissent, meaning disagreement, was a threat to the church and its power. So the church started to accuse people who were going against their church teachings of heresy. And what they would do is have trials called inquisitions, where they would put a heretic, meaning a person who believes in ideas opposed to that of the church. They would put these heretics on trial in a court that is based on the church, and then use that to try to weed out this heresy. Also, a dispute over who is going to become the Pope in 1379 further weakened the church. So you're going to see the church's power start to weaken in this part of the Middle Ages. Okay. Now take a look. I'm going to show you a picture of what an inquisition might look like. You see you have the church people there. You have people knelt down in front of them. You have the inquisitor kind of pointing in the direction. So these are some very difficult trials. Now, so that's the religious aspect of it. In terms of the governmental, political aspects of it, we have two conflicts that are going to be very, very powerful in the Middle Ages. We have the 100 Years' War in AD 1337. It actually lasts longer than that, but that's the standard term for it. King Edward III of England feels that he should be the rightful heir to the throne of France. And since he's the nearest male relative to the French king who had died and left no heir, so he then invades France. The English win quite often. In 1429, Joan of Arc, who we'll talk a lot more about in class, leads the French army, and then the English execute her in 1431. So she becomes a martyr. You know that she's sainted. King Charles VII of France rallied and started to reclaim French territory in this 100 Years' War. And so it's not going to be, though, until 1453 that we see this war actually finally end. So Britain and France not getting along at this point. And if you remember, William the Conqueror had come and, as a French king and established himself on the English throne. So there's a lot of backstory to this, and we can see why these families are related and why Edward III would have this claim to the French throne. I'll show you a couple of pictures. 100 Years' War. Okay. We want to look at Joan of Arc. Now, there was a movie made not too long ago with this girl. I can't remember her name. I can see it on there, Lily Sobieski. So if you're interested in seeing it, that is a film that you're able to view. It's relatively accurate historically. And then there's another depiction of Joan of Arc. Okay, the next conflict that we're going to look at is within England itself. So it's not between England and any other country. It is in England itself. So you have two families in England that are fighting each other over the British throne. This takes place from 1453 to 1487, so it's over a 30-year period. The reason why we call it the Wars of the Roses is because there's two families in Britain, and both of them are using the rose as their family emblem. We have the Lancasters and the Yorks, and I'll show you their roses in a second in the pictures. The Yorkists are going to be successful, so what you're going to see is the Yorkists win, they're in power. Richard III, when he dies, he brings forth a man named Henry Tudor, and the Tudor kings are going to start that dynasty. Tudor is related to both the Lancasters and the Yorks, so this ends the War of the Roses when Henry VII comes to power. You see that this dispute over the British throne ends this long-standing dispute between these two families. So the War of the Roses, now think about it, Britain has kind of just been fighting for 100 years against France, and now there's a civil conflict. There's going to be a lot of upheaval in Britain, and so you're going to see a lot of challenges for the British nation. So that's about all we have in terms of writing. Let's take a look together quickly at the different family emblems. So here is a depiction of the War of the Roses. You see the red rose, the white rose, okay? And so this is where you see the difference. Now I'll show you on this diagram here. The Lancasters are the red rose, the Yorks are the white. And what happens is when the two of them unite in Henry VII, you get the Tudor dynasty, which kind of melds the two, and so you see an end to that dispute, at least for the moment. And that's all we have for the evening, so I hope you guys enjoy your evening, and we'll talk about Joan of Arc and the like tomorrow. Thank you, and good night.